Hey, it's Aunt Shazy. If you're from Colorado Springs or are planning a visit to the area, my favorite museum in town is the National Museum of World War II Aviation. It is a must visit. Full disclosure, I'm maybe biased as my son and I have volunteered at this awesome place. They have 29 operational planes, 20 from World War II, and also other planes from pre- and post-war eras, so I'd like to tell you a little bit about several of them. The first plane you see as you walk through the gift shop into the hangar is the F-7F Tiger Cat. Did you know it was one of the fastest piston engine fighters built for the U.S. Navy? Designed by Grumman, the Tiger Cat first flew in 1943 and featured two powerful engines, heavy cannons, and impressive speed. The aircraft was intended for carrier operations but failed carrier landing tests. This was corrected with the F-7F-3 in 1945 with an enlarged vertical stabilizer and rudder. Because of that, the Tiger Cat missed combat during World War II, though it later served with the U.S. Marine Corps and even fought in the Korean War. Even today, the Tiger Cat remains one of the most powerful piston engine fighters ever built. This one was restored in 2007. Also, another really cool plane is the SB2C Helldiver. It was nicknamed the Beast by its pilots. Built by Curtiss Wright, early versions had handling problems, which is how the nickname started. The Helldiver replaced the earlier Dauntless dive bomber late in World War II. It had a top speed of 281 miles per hour, and it was the shortest range aircraft in the Fifth Fleet. Once improved, the aircraft became a powerful carrier-based dive bomber used heavily in the Pacific. It played a key role in attacking enemy ships, airfields, and military targets. You can see the only Dash 1 flying in the world today at the museum. It was recovered from Lake Washington decades ago and meticulously restored in Westpac at the museum. Another plane in this hangar is the Grumman F3F2 Flying Barrel. It entered service in 1936. The entire production series was delivered in 1937 and 1938, and it retired from frontline service in 1941. Only a handful of these planes remain, and 4 or less are actually flyable, like this one. One of my favorite planes also happens to be the oldest and rarest at the museum. It is a Waco JYM biplane that was flown by Charles Lindbergh. It was developed in 1929 as an airmail plane. A single pilot sat in the back seat, while the small front seat could hold packages or 2 small people. There were mail compartments in the fuselage, making its mail load 560 pounds. The plane at the museum is the only flyable one of the 4 that were ever built. You might have noticed us walking by the TBM Avenger. It became one of the most powerful torpedo bombers of World War II. Originally designed by Grumman, with later versions being built by General Motors, the Avenger carried a crew of 3 and could launch torpedoes or bombs. It had a range of about 1,000 miles. The aircraft entered combat in 1942 and served throughout the Pacific. Its top speed was 200 miles per hour. George H.W. Bush flew and was shot down in an Avenger in World War II. The future president obviously survived. His gunner and radio operator bombardier did not. Actor Paul Newman was even a gunner in one. Later versions like the TMB-3E continued serving even after the war. The Avenger at the museum served with VA-135 for a short period in 1948. The sheer amount of artifacts and information at the museum means you can come over and over and see and learn something new every single time. Exhibits talk about the prelude to war from the 1930s to 1941, the war itself, and the evolutions of the planes and weapons used. The Prelude to War exhibit takes a look at aviation from the early 1900s to the attack on Pearl Harbor. You'll see advancements in aircraft design and the race to develop land and sea-based military aviation. The Weathering the Storm exhibit takes a look at America's entry into the war, where it's not just American aviation technology, but a look at German and Japanese tech as well. This is where you will learn more about the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, the Battle of Midway, the invasion of North Africa, and the Doolittle Raid. The Striking Back exhibit shows the evolution of air power from February 1943 to June of 1944. This area is a deeper dive into the invasions of Sicily and Italy, successes in the Pacific, and the shift in the balance of power in Europe. The Controlling the Skies exhibit examines the time frame from June 1944 to September of 1945. This area examines the last stage of the war, with the push across Europe into Germany and the Pacific, and the final push American air power demonstrated in the victory over Japan and Germany. Did you see the Republic P-47D Thunderbolt we passed by? It was one of the toughest Allied planes in World War II. I once heard a guy say it was built like a brick outhouse. This one at the museum was delivered to the USAAF in July of 1945 and had 2 crashes, being restored in Texas. It's one of only 3 P-47s with a working turbocharger. Did you know the museum is expanding? We recorded this footage in March of 2026 as they were building another 40,000 square foot hangar. This area will house more aircraft, new exhibits, a new research library, and more educational programs. There is also another long-term project in the works to build an 86,000 square foot facility to add an event center. Check out this Beechcraft T-34 Mentor. It was designed in the late 1940s and was designed as a military trainer based on the popular Beechcraft Bonanza. Its goal was to prepare young aviators for the transition into faster, more complex aircraft. The B variant, built for the U.S. Navy, entered service in the 1950s and was praised for its reliability, ruggedness, and forgiving flight characteristics. Many Navy and Marine pilots began their flying careers in the cockpit of a Mentor like this one. While not a combat machine, it represents the very foundation of military aviation training, carrying the legacy of thousands of pilots who went on to defend the skies. The Beechcraft Super 18 was produced from 1937 to 1969, with over 9,000 of them being built. The military version was a C-45. This one at the museum is a Super E-18S Executive Super Twin. It has room for 9 passengers. There's a really cool story behind the Gullwing V-77 Reliant. It was owned by Tuskegee Airman Frank Macon, which he presented to the museum in 2019. These aircraft were used for training, transport, and communication duties, had a range of 850 miles, and a service ceiling of 21,000 feet. Its reliability made it valuable throughout the war. Frank grew up in Colorado Springs and passed away at the age of 97 on November 23, 2020. Did you see the Howard DGA-15 we passed by? It has a cool story behind it too. In 1924, Benny Howard designed and built his first aircraft, which is amazing on its own, but he only had a grammar school education. This kicked off his career designing and building racing airplanes, and him starting the Howard Aircraft Group, which only lasted from 1936 to 1944. This plane has a wingspan of 38 feet, a range of 920 miles, and a cruise speed of 120 miles per hour. Benjamin Odell Howard died in 1970. Pioneer airplane builder Donald Douglas Sr. delivered his eulogy. One of the coolest things about the museum, and I might be a little biased since this is the area that I have volunteered in, is the N3N Virtual Trainer Flight Simulator. This is a real World War II airplane outfitted with modern simulator technology. The real-time response isn't only fun for the person flying, but it's quite the experience for those watching. Also in this area is the Norden Bombsight Simulator. The Norden Bombsight was top secret technology that changed aerial warfare. Developed in the US during the 1930s and used extensively in World War II, it was a mechanical analog computer that allowed bomber crews to drop bombs with unprecedented accuracy from high altitudes. The bombsight was famously promoted with the promise that it could drop a bomb in a pickle barrel from 20,000 feet, a claim more hopeful than practical, but one that captured the public's imagination. The device used gyroscopes, sighting mechanisms, and a stabilization system to adjust for airspeed, altitude, wind drift, and aircraft movement, making it a game changer for strategic bombing campaigns. The museum offers self-guided or guided tours with a docent. If you take one with a docent, you'll hear a great story about the only person shot down in a Link trainer during the war. The Link trainer was built by Edwin Link in the late 1920s from his family's player piano business parts. In fact, many people who visit the museum think this is a toy plane, but it's actually for serious instrument training. Thousands were purchased and used by the military during the war. Also, many people miss the door behind the simulator that will not only take you to more planes, but a couple of the World War II vehicles the museum has on display. While the museum is primarily famous for its world-class collection of flying warbirds, it maintains a dedicated collection of fully restored and operational ground vehicles. These vehicles were used by U.S. and Allied forces to support air base operations and defend forward positions. The ground vehicle collection includes M2A1 half-track, This versatile armored vehicle combines wheels and tracks to navigate difficult terrain, often used for transporting troops or as a platform for anti-aircraft guns. M3A1 Scout Car, a fast four-wheel drive armored vehicle primarily used for reconnaissance and command purposes during the war. The Ford GPW, a classic World War II Jeep. These rugged utility vehicles were the workhorses of the military and are often displayed in pristine, functional condition. And the Chevrolet Airfield Crash Truck, a specialized emergency vehicle designed to respond to aircraft accidents, reflecting the museum's specific focus on aviation history. But back to the planes. The Cessna A-37B Dragonfly was one of the most effective close air support jets of the Vietnam War. Developed from a T-37 Tweet USAF basic trainer, the A-37 Dragonfly was small, fast, heavily armed for its size, and produced between 1967 and 1975. It carried machine guns, bombs, rockets, and could stay close to the battlefield to support troops on the ground. During the Vietnam War, the Dragonfly flew thousands of combat missions and became known for its accuracy and reliability. Even after the war, it continued serving in several air forces around the world. The one at the museum is painted in the colors of the 604th Special Operations Squadron and served in Vietnam from 1967 to 1970, which was right around the time that my dad was serving in Vietnam. Thanks for your service, Dad. The Boeing Stearman PT-13 Cadet trained thousands of American pilots during World War II. The PT-13 was a rugged training biplane used by U.S. Army Air Forces, and more than 10,000 military and civilian versions were built in the 1930s and 40s. Student pilots learned the basics of flight in the open cockpit before advancing to more complex aircraft. Because it trained so many aviators, the aircraft earned the nickname the Pilot Maker. The one in this video is an E-75, has a wingspan of 32 feet 2 inches, and was used during World War II at training bases in Texas. It was used by WASP instructors to train aviation cadets and donated to the museum by Rick James of Auburn, Indiana. No, not that Rick James. Oh, and I can't forget the G-44 Widgeon was named after a duck. Built by Grumman, the Widgeon was a small 5-person twin-engine amphibious aircraft produced from 1940 to 1949 and named after the North American Widgeon. During World War II, it served with the U.S. military performing patrol and utility aircraft duties. 276 were built, with 176 going to the military. Its ability to operate from lakes, rivers, and remote airstrips made it extremely versatile. After the war, many Widgeons continued flying as civilian aircraft. The Widgeon in this museum is a G-44A Super Widgeon, and it is one of 28 airworthy Widgeons in operation today. Did you know the Fairchild PT-19 helped train thousands of American pilots during World War II? Built by Fairchild Aircraft, the PT-19 was a primary training aircraft used by the U.S. Army Air Forces. Student pilots learned the basics of flying in the open cockpit before moving on to larger and faster aircraft. The PT-19B version included upgraded navigation instruments and radios. Aircraft like this were responsible for turning civilians into military pilots during one of the largest training programs in aviation history. The PT-19B in this video was built in the Fairchild plant in Hagerstown, Maryland, and went into the USAAF on May 28, 1943. It was assigned to the Chickasaw Municipal Airport and had many owners before it was donated to the museum in 2019. The Douglas SBD Dauntless helped change the course of World War II. SBD stands for Scout Bomber Douglas, and these planes became famous during the Battle of Midway in 1942, where they sank 3 Japanese carriers. In just minutes, U.S. Navy dive bombers attacked and destroyed the Japanese aircraft carriers, turning the tide of the war in the Pacific. Even though it wasn't the fastest aircraft, the Dauntless was incredibly accurate and reliable, making it one of the most effective dive bombers of the war. Another question: did you know the Grumman F-3F2 was the last biplane fighter ever used by the U.S. Navy before World War II? Built by Grumman in the 1930s, the F-3F-2 represented a peak of naval biplane design. It was fast, rugged, and capable of operating from aircraft carriers at sea. But aviation technology was advancing quickly. By the time the United States entered World War II, the F-3F2 had already been replaced by newer monoplane fighters like the Wildcat. The plane in this video entered service in 1938 and crashed into a mountain in Hawaii in 1941. It was recovered in the 1980s and restored to a flyable aircraft. Today, only a handful of these historic planes survive. Oh, and the big boy in the first hangar that I didn't mention yet, the PBY Catalina. It became one of the most successful patrol aircraft of World War II. Built by Consolidated Aircraft, the Catalina could take off and land directly on water and was used before, during, and after World War II. Their winning design had a wing with external bracing struts mounted on a pylon over the fuselage called a parasol wing. These aircraft were the first production airplanes with fuel storage in the wings and flew long-range patrol missions searching for enemy submarines and ships. They were also famous for rescue missions, saving thousands of downed airmen, and the last active military PBYs weren't retired until the 1980s. In fact, Catalinas helped locate the Japanese fleet during the Battle of Midway. This plane in the museum served in the Royal Canadian Air Force and spent time in South Africa before being restored. I don't know if you know this, but the museum is a nonprofit that doesn't receive federal funding or taxpayer support. It relies on the generous support of donors and the amazing team of volunteers that works behind the scenes restoring the planes and the vehicles, maintaining the complex, and doing the administration work. So a big thank you to all the volunteers you see around the museum as you take a tour or attend one of the many events they put on during the year. But I have to tell you, the place that the magic really happens, and I apologize, I did not get any footage inside Westpac. I did not want to be intrusive while they were working. It's included in the guided tour though. That's only an additional $5 and worth every penny. Currently, they are restoring a Curtiss P-40 fighter. If you live in Colorado Springs, please consider donating your time to the museum. As someone who has, I can personally tell you, it has been an amazing, rewarding experience for myself and my son. Oh, and World War II vets get in free, and parking is free as well. For more information about volunteering, donating, hours of operation, pricing, all of that can be found on the website. And the upcoming events. I've attended a bunch and I can attest to how awesome they are. There's also a podcast called Wing Victory with Rob and my buddy Scott, and a ton of informational videos and past lectures that are available on their YouTube channel. I'll include a link in the video description. And remember, I'd love your feedback and comments. Have you been to the museum? Are you former military or just a big aviation nerd like me? I'm not a pilot or former military, so take it easy on me in the comments if I mispronounced something or got something wrong. Hopefully I didn't. And as always, if you're still listening to me by this point, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.